All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for GBM number 6. Today, we're joined by Annie Wozniak. Thank you very much for being here with us. I'll go over some of our AAS stuff, and then I'll hand the presentation over to her. So here's the point submission form. You get 2 points for being at the GBM today. I'll leave this up for a couple seconds, but it'll also be at the end of the presentation as well. All right. So I'll go over some upcoming events. So this week we have a exciting event for the Adapt Athletics track and field team. They'll be competing at the Aztec Invite, which is Division 1 track meet. Thank you to everyone who came to the Coastal Classic a few weeks ago. I know they really appreciated the volunteer help and the support. This one, no volunteer opportunity, just opportunity to go out and support the athletes. They'll be competing from 12 to 3:30 at the sports deck. And they'll be competing in the 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, and shot put. So if you have time on Friday, I know they always appreciate our support, and it's always really cool to see them compete in these amazing track meets. Also, next Wednesday, I know this one's been rescheduled a couple times, but we'll be having our wheelchair basketball social. So 6 to 7:30 next Wednesday on the Arc basketball courts. This is a really fun one. Thank you to everyone who came to our meeting a couple weeks ago where we discussed a little bit about the background of wheelchair basketball, some of the rules, and how to play. So at this event, we'll be able to actually put it into practice, hit the court, just have some fun. Hopefully, we should have a few athletes there to help demonstrate, especially athletes that have played wheelchair basketball before. So this will be a fun one to just hang out, get active, and try a new sport out. And then our last GBM of the semester will be 2 weeks from today. It'll be on Wednesday, April 22nd. This one will be in person, so it'll be at PSFA 437 at 5:30 p.m. We're going to be bringing in one of the adaptive athletics Coach Jasmine Burrell. She is the adapted athletics throws coach. She's been here for a while, and she's also the Paralympic Team USA throws coach and a USA track and field athlete personal throws coach. So she has plenty of experience working with elite athletes at the Paralympic level, at the collegiate level, and she'll have some great expertise to share with us, some about her experiences and adaptive athletics. So this will be a great last GBM. Hope to see you guys there in person. And then another big event. This will be one of our last events of the year. Something we do every year with the Chula Vista Elite Athletic Training Center. This is the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center down in Chula Vista, so about 25 minutes away from SDSU. We have the opportunity to do a 90-minute tour of the facilities. Might be able to see some Olympians and Paralympians training there for the upcoming LA Olympics and coming back from the Winter Olympics. So this is a really cool opportunity, really close to San Diego State, and it's a awesome to see where these elite athletes train and the facilities they have. So, if you're interested in this one, we have the RSVP form up. I'll share it in the group me after this GBM, but you can also scan the QR code here, and it's on the events calendar. And then we're asking that everyone please RSVP by next Thursday, the 16th. And then this event will be the following Friday, so April 24th at 10:30 a.m. And if you're not able to get a ride there, we'll set up a carpool form. Just indicate that on the Google form, and we'll make sure everyone's set so they can get there. And this is completely free for all the AAS members, so it's a great opportunity. And then I'll give it up to Annie.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, is that me sharing my screen? You're reviewing. Oh,
No, I just have your slides in case, but
okay.
feel free to share your screen.
Can you unshare? Can you stop sharing? I think it's not letting
Yeah,
me here.
there you
Okay.
go.
Cool. Okay. Let me go to slideshow. Okay. Awesome. And everyone can see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I actually was able to do this presentation last year to this group, so some of you might have seen this before. But my name is Annie. I'll go a little bit more into myself, but one of my colleagues, I actually work with her in my full-time job now, but she is one of the owners of 1904. It's in Kearney Mesa. So that is the gym that I'll be kind of speaking to because that's where a lot of my experiences come from working with adaptive athletes. Okay. Oh, I have to go to my actual, there we go. So we'll talk about, like I said, how it's ran at CrossFit 1904. We had an adaptive program and are kind of relaunching it as well. We'll talk through programming and modifications when working with adaptive athletes, some success stories. That's the fun stuff. Just showing you some videos of some of the adaptive athletes that I've been able to work with at the gym. And then I'll leave plenty of time for Q&A, and then how you can stay involved, which you all are doing a fantastic job with that, with all the things that you were just talking about, William. So that's great. Okay, so when we're first talking about, oh no, that's where I want to go first. So CrossFit 1904. We started working with adaptive athletes back in 2017. So we were partnering with the VA, and we offered this free class to veterans who had visible and invisible disabilities. I had not joined CrossFit 1904 as a coach until 2019. But it was around that time that we actually opened up adaptive classes, not just to veterans, but those who just were adaptive athletes who were also had permanent and impermanent injuries. And then when we got into 2022, we actually fully integrated all the adaptive athletes into our classes. So I coach CrossFit still at 1904. And so in any given class during the week, I might have some adaptive athletes, those that are in a prosthesis, those that are wheelchair athletes, and they are just fully integrated into our classes with able-bodied athletes as well. And then last year, my colleague and I, like I said, Elise, we were able to actually start a clinic partnering with the Challenged Athletes Foundation. I'm sure you guys have worked with them before, have heard of them, but we run a strength clinic, and we've done it 2 times now. We're actually running a third one in May, and I'll talk about that at the end. But it's open to those with visible disabilities. So a lot of the athletes have been those wheelchair athletes, which you can see by the pictures actually below. This was from our January clinic. We were able to get about 12 athletes, which is fantastic. We had kids that were 10 years old up to this woman on the right hand, Penny. She's 78 years old. She is a fantastic human being. She's so cute. She loves lifting weights. She had never lifted a weight before in her life. And then she came to the clinic and she was smiling and having so much fun, just learning that she could press weights overhead and even get a barbell over her head. And then we also offer at 1904, we work with a company called Improve Inc. And so that is a company that actually works with adults and children on the spectrum. And they have personal training sessions that they run usually when we're doing our normal CrossFit classes. So there's 2 partnerships that we have going on at the gym currently. And just a little bit about myself. So I've been coaching the past 11 years. It's not my full-time role anymore, but I started and majored in exercise science, thought I wanted to be a physical therapist, but I graduated during the pandemic and I realized that I wanted to work for a little bit. So I ended up getting to work for a company called Exos and was working on their Google account. So I was able to be a full-time coach, working with Googlers, coaching them in the actual Google offices, which is really fun, great, amazing, awesome. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, what the heck am I going to do? So I made my way down to San Diego because I was in San Francisco, and I heard about Movement RX, which used to be a physical therapy clinic. Now is still around, and I still work with them on the side, but they work with leadership now, executive leadership, on how to take care of themselves so they can be at their best. But when I went to Movement RX, originally they were a physical therapy clinic actually in CrossFit 1904. So you'll see that a lot of CrossFit gyms will have a physical therapy clinic or massage or chiropractic. So they were in CrossFit 1904 and actually trained and worked with a lot of the adaptive athletes that ended up going into the classes. So I've been able to work with adaptive athletes for the past 6 years. And with Movement RX, I've actually also been able to develop a college level course. It's called the Advanced Adaptive course. We also had a free adaptive course that we actually offered through the VA as well, and did that for about 2 years. So experience working with athletes of all different injury levels and abilities. So we're going to talk about first considerations for coaching adaptive athletes. Now, a lot of this stuff when it comes to rules of engagement, if you've coached someone before, whether it's able-bodied or someone with a physical or visible or invisible disability, it should be very similar. When we think about that, it's open communication. So when an adaptive athlete comes in, a lot of times they're going to feel nervous and anxious to be in a gym. A lot of people have weird feelings about gyms at times, especially CrossFit gyms. And so, obviously, if you want to work with adaptive athletes, you might not be in a CrossFit setting, but that's where I was. And a lot of these athletes did not always feel comfortable in a CrossFit gym. So, having that open line of communication, body language is huge. I like to talk with my hands, but one of those things to consider is also how you are presenting yourself. So, open chest. So, you're showing that you're open. If your arms are crossed, if you're looking down, it changes how they're going to perceive you. So, considering that element as well. And then asking questions. Asking questions is really important. You are not the expert on their body, they are the expert on their body. You are there to help them and guide them, but they have to help teach you what they feel comfortable with, what they want to work on. So asking questions is vital. You have that education, that's what you're bringing, but it's one of those things where people will only care about, like, they don't care about as much as like what you know, it's how they make you feel, how you make them feel. So you want to build that trust and rapport with them before you start giving them, rattling off all these items that they are going to work on when it comes to their programming. And then active listening. I think, that saying of like, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, you need to make sure you're listening. Make sure you're checking in with them and seeing those cues around like, how are they responding to what I just said? How are they responding to what movement they just did? So you really need to be able to look at be present and listen and see what they are doing and what they are saying as well. And then collaboration. You need to collaborate with them. This is a very collaborative partnership that you will have, and explaining that to them is really important as well. Yes, you have the experience. You are the expert coming to them, but again, they are the expert of their body. And then the last one is just checking in throughout the session. How did that feel? Do you want to try this? So it should be really fun and collaborative. I'll talk about one of the athletes later. Steven, he had a non-traumatic TBI, so brain injury, and he comes in and sometimes I'm like, what do you want to do today? Because it'll be something that doesn't make sense for him to do. And it's a very collaborative thing. And then I'm never coming in with an ego and like, well, I know all this, so I'm just going to tell you what to do. It's asking him the question so he has the opportunity to answer. So now going into definitions. So there's some things I just said TBI. So I'll be using acronyms for some things, but just want to go through definitions really quickly. So when we're thinking about temporary versus permanent injuries, temporary injuries, you can even think of that as someone who is pregnant. They will heal over time. Obviously, their body will change slightly, but it's something that will heal over time, months or weeks. But permanent is something that is irreversible. It's there forever. A traumatic brain injury is a non-degenerative injury to the brain from an external mechanical force, possibly leading to permanent or temporary impairment of their cognitive, physical, and psychological functions. And then non-TBI, so non-traumatic brain injury, is an injury from internal factors, so lack of oxygen, infection, toxins, leading to a disruption of signals running through their spinal cord. So I will talk about an incomplete and a complete spinal cord injury a little bit later on to athletes that I've worked with. You can think of complete spinal cord injury, within the spinal cord, there's no signals being sent up and down the spinal cord. But with an incomplete, there will be some signals, so there might be some movement, but that doesn't mean they have full function. Salvage limb. So you can think of that as if it was below or above the elbow or below or above the knee. So a permanent impairment caused by direct trauma to the limb, typically characterized by a combination of skeletal, muscular, and neurological dysfunction. And then amputation, a surgical removal of a body part. So arm, leg, toe, finger, whatever it is. So those are the definitions that I'll be going through. And I understand there's a lot of things that I'm throwing at you. I will give time for questions. If there's like burning desire, William, if you see anything in the comment section, you're like, wait, can you pause for a minute? I'm happy to do that as well. Okay. Oh no, it didn't make me do this. Oh, sorry. It's making me do each one. Okay, so this table, I am not going to read word for word. You will be able to get this deck after. But like I said earlier, there was this course that I taught with Movement RX. So one of the physical therapists, Dr. Megan, she developed this adaptive course. She led it. She's still in charge of the curriculum for our advanced course because we offer it for college students and universities. And so she was the main developer of this, and this is where I learned a lot of my education was through her. So this chart is exactly what the adaptive course was all about. We'd walk through primal movements, how we as human beings should be able to move, and then how that would change for someone with an upper extremity injury, a lower extremity injury, woo, and then those that would be seated in a wheelchair. So when we think about primal movements, squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling in different directions, carrying, very functional movements. Obviously, these things will change depending on what their injury is. So for someone that has an upper extremity injury, let's say they have an amputation or they're paralyzed from either the shoulder down or the elbow down, they might be doing a lot of single arm stuff. So you need to be cognizant of that. So a lot of the pushing and pulling with the upper body would be single arm focused. And then if they're holding a barbell, they might need support depending on, there's different types of tools that can be used to support them. Like if you were to do a front squat, you obviously wouldn't want them, if they had prosthetics, to be putting the bar on the prosthesis, so they might cross their arms instead. So that's one of those things where as you get to work with different athletes, you kind of learn and develop an understanding of what's in your toolbox of movements that you should be utilizing if, let's say you're squatting and someone comes in and they're not able to squat. So lower extremity, there should be really no change for upper extremity focused movements. But for someone, and I'll talk about this, one of our athletes, for someone that has lower extremity amputation, let's say, they're not going to have as much give in their ankle. So they're going to have to find different ways to get feedback. So a lot of times we'll put a plate under that injured side to give them some feedback so they feel like they're pushing off something. And then those in a wheelchair, they're obviously going to change a lot of things. It's going to depend on their level of injury. It's going to depend on how long they've been training. There's so many other factors with a wheelchair athlete that you need to consider, especially if an athlete's coming in who's in a wheelchair and it's squatting. What do you do for that? Well, I'll show you a video in a little bit, but what we'll do is dips instead. So there's obviously things, especially with wheelchair athletes, that you have to get a little bit more creative with, but understanding human movement is really important. And I think this, honestly, working with adaptive athletes has made me a better coach because I can think quicker on the fly. Okay. Now I'm going to try to show some videos. I did pull some up. So I'm hoping they're not the greatest quality, but I'm hoping I can start running through these so you guys can see them. So I was saying for hinge, this is one of our athletes. She has a band around her hips and she's doing a hinge this way. So it's giving her some resistance. This would obviously be, if you think about from easiest to hardest, starting from the ground up is really important. So this is a variation that you could do. She's doing a good morning basically, but she has some resistance here. So she's able to do a hinge. Okay. Same athlete. Now she's showing a squat. This is one option if you were to do squats with someone who has a prosthetic. Obviously, like I said, you don't have as much give in that ankle. That is the injured side. So squatting to a target is a great option for that. Oh, that's not the one I want. So this is Chianti. I can't remember the first athlete that I showed you. I have not really worked with her. She was just a friend from the owner of Movement RX, but she was super cool and was a veteran. This is another veteran Chianti story. You guys might, I feel like he's pretty well known in the adaptive community where you guys might know him actually, but he's showing what he originally used to look like when he had his injury. He doesn't walk like this anymore. But obviously, if you don't have as much give on that injured side, there's going to be a little bit of a limp that happens. Okay, I am going to go back to this because there's just so many videos. No. Okay, I'm going to show you one of Steven here, but you will see more of Steven later on. So this is Steven. He is an awesome, awesome human being, super impressive human being. He actually used to coach adaptive athletes he's a Paralympian. He did cycling. So he is just an amazing human being. But he had a stroke when he was still serving in the military. So he cannot function. His right side does not have much movement. So you can see he has a brace on his lower limb, and then his right arm is just kind of hanging there. So he's hemiplegic. So he can do obviously a lot with his left side, but that means that there is some asymmetry when over time that has developed because of that. Okay. Ooh, I do want to show this one actually. She had never done CrossFit before. I think this was like 2 or 3 years ago. This is Brett. You'll meet him in a minute, but he is so cool. He was an adaptive athlete that came into the gym and then started coaching adaptive athletes as well. This is his friend. I believe her name is Shelly, but she had lost all 4 limbs to cancer. And she never picked up a barbell before. She never lifted before. And she came to the gym when we were doing the CrossFit Open. And if you guys have ever done CrossFit, you know the Open can be quite intense. And she never put a barbell over her head. And she decided that she was going to do it in front of a lot of people. And she did it with weight. And it was so exciting. You could just see it on her face. She was like, oh my gosh, I did it. So it was super exciting, super cool. I think moments like those are just remind me of like how fun it is to work with adaptive athletes, especially if they're willing to, try things out and get experimentative with what they can do and be okay if they're not good at something. So this is just a sample program that you could see for someone depending on what injury they have. So a lot of times when I am coaching, let's say like Friday morning, I'm going to coach class. And if Steven comes in, I know that he's going to have to change some things potentially. So if let's say we had a 5x3 back squat, wheelchair athlete is going to probably do bench press or some sort of dipping motion instead. Versus upper and lower body injury, the upper body, they might do a PVC squat or a landmine squat. So if you've ever seen those, it's like an attachment that you can put on the ground and you can put your barbell in there. And so they'll have it at an angle and they can squat that way. And then for lower, like I showed you earlier, they could do some sort of box squat or heel elevated. And then a lot of times with CrossFit classes, we'll have a strength portion and then a Metcon portion. So let's say you have a 15-minute AMRAP, so as many rounds as possible. There's jump rope, there's some dumbbell work, there's some lunges. So we actually have adaptive equipment at CrossFit 1904, which is really cool. So they have ropes that the seated athletes can use. So obviously they're not able to jump, so they're going to use ropes. It's a forearm burner, so they're able to get a good workout in it for that. And then also some sort of banded press. So there's so many things that you can do. You just have to understand as a coach what the movement is. What is the goal of the movement? And then you can always tailor it to the athlete in front of you. For someone that has an upper extremity injury, some sort of single arm rope, arm slam, ball slam, and then single arm walking lunges. And then the rope slams would be the battle ropes that you have at gyms that you see at times. So you can do that to pick up their heart rate. Because a lot of times what's a challenge that for some athletes that aren't able to jump or do running is getting their heart rate picked up. And it's harder to do that if they can't do some of those higher impact movements like jumping or running. So this is Brett. I alluded to him earlier. He is a goofy dude. I love him. He is fun. He is fantastic. He came into the gym back in 2020. So a little bit before I actually started coaching actual classes. but he is a T12 incomplete. So when I said incomplete earlier, he has the ability to move his legs slightly, but that does not mean he's able to walk. So he has the ability to hinge probably more than someone who has a higher level injury or someone that has a complete spinal cord injury. But he is able to do things that some other seated athletes might not be able to do. So he's actually injured with during an ATV trip that he was doing. He was just on a bike and he was just being reckless. He said that he was being reckless, but he was 18 years old. So obviously, an 18-year-old boy on an ATV, not good decisions are going to be made. But he got injured and then had to really restart his life over again. So he actually, when he came to the gym, he was overweight. He was not happy. He really was struggling mentally as well. And then he got really into CrossFit and he actually became a competitive adaptive athlete. So he competed in the wheel wad games. He also does deep end fitness. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but I think of it as like CrossFit in the water. And so he actually became a coach for that, which is really cool. And he became just super active in his child's life as well. And I think it gave him a new lease on life to feel so good from working out. Obviously, if you're sitting in a chair all day, it's really easy to not feel great because you can't change positions. So huge accomplishment for him was he was able to finish in the top 10 every single time he competed in the adaptive CrossFit games, which is just amazing. So I'm going to try to show some videos. Let's see. Oh, that's not it. No. These are all of Stephen. Let me see. Aha. So this is Brett. He actually got out of his chair. So something that you need to consider is not all athletes, especially wheelchair athletes, are going to want to get out of their chair. It's not always comfortable. It can be scary. But this is something that Brett is able to do. So he's doing push-ups here, as you can see. I don't know if it fully goes into him getting back into his chair. It doesn't. But he is doing knee push-ups. So that is an option. If we were in like a workout where it was a cardio workout and it was for time, I wouldn't have him get out of his chair just because of the fatigue and how much easier it would be for him to hurt himself. So key considerations when you are working with athletes is just understanding what they feel comfortable with, what the workout is. I don't think I have. I'm trying to see if I have any more Brett that are up. No. Okay. So let me see. Okay. Here's another one. Let me share this instead. He is doing a pull down with the band. This was actually when we were recording content for the advanced adaptive course. So he was one of the models that we utilized to show some of the movements. Let me see that one. I showed you that one. This is him doing pull-ups. So like I said, we have adaptive equipment at the gym, which is really cool. So for someone that is a seated athlete, we actually have movable bars. So we could move this up and down the rig. So he could do this seated. Keith, the next athlete I'm going to show you, actually does this in his chair and he pulls himself off the ground, which is insane. He has like a 300-pound bench press. So this is just like insane. But this is Keith. He is a T12 complete spinal cord injury. So he also injured himself during some sort of like bike accident. So it was on his motorcycle. He doesn't anymore, but he used to attend classes 4 to 5 times a week. With CrossFit, it is something where it's high volume, high intensity. And for him, when you're doing a workout and it's, let's say there's lower body movements and upper body movements, over time, it gets very fatiguing. And he ended up having a good amount of injuries because his job also has a lot of manual labor. He's actually a woodworker. So he is using his hands all day. And so he was just getting injured a lot. So he's taken a break from CrossFit and is actually doing pickleball now, which is really cool. But he's just an insane athlete. And it's really cool to have been a coach for him and to learn from him as well. He's the first athlete to give me really feedback. I was doing a class and he he pulled me aside. He's like, hey, what makes sense for them, the speed that you're going at, it doesn't make sense for me. I need you to slow down. And I needed that feedback. And so I appreciated that from him. He's been honest with me as I coached him. I learned a lot from him. So he's just a fantastic human as well. And a huge accomplishment is he lives independently in his home that was not ADA compliant. So he has done that for himself. It's just amazing to see how much he's evolved and just being able to live independently for a lot of people that have gone through some sort of permanent injury. It's not always something that they're able to do. So let me see if I can show you. Let's see what comes up. Aha. So this is him using the rig to do some overhead pressing. That's Jaime in the back. This is when we had this is not the greatest video quality, as you can see, but he is doing some overhead pressing and using the rig for some stability, just so that he can stay upright. Let me see. Aha, this one's also doing it. So I showed you that adjustable bar before, so we can actually use a barbell as well. So he's kind of doing a little bit of like a kip with that, so doing it with momentum. But we used, it's kind of sketchy, but you can see there's a band around the rig. I wouldn't recommend that. But Keith is someone that, yeah, he just lives on the edge, so he does not care. This is another movement. So that's actually Elise in the background, one of the owners of the gym, but he is just showing, I believe he was doing, what is it, devil's press. So it was just a variation of devil's press, which is just a movement you can do with dumbbells. And then this is what he would do for rowing. So a rower would obviously be a lot different because it's a lower body focused movement, but you need your whole body for it. So we actually set this up so that he would use the box to be able to lean forward but not fall out of his chair, because sometimes, depending on the wheelchair that you have, and unfortunately insurance does not always cover this depending on the injury, and how you were injured, is that you have to buy your chair yourself. And so it's very expensive. So if you don't have brakes, this would obviously be very dangerous to do. So we've kind of done a makeshift version for him to make sure that he can safely use the rower. Okay, this is Hollis. He actually, I think Hollis is, all these athletes, I'm going to rave about them because they are just amazing humans. They are such cool humans, but he also does stand up now, I guess. But he no longer goes to the gym, but I was able to work with him for a short period of time. But he actually his injury was caused by, I believe he was going down when he was a child, going down a hill, and he was in a wheelbarrow or something, and he fell out and he hit his head. And so he's damaged his cervical spine. So he thankfully is still alive, first of all, but he's been injured his whole entire adulthood. So let me see if you can see this. In this video, you can see that his left side is slightly paralyzed, so he can't use his left arm, but his right side he is able to utilize a little bit more. So we call that more of like a hemiplegic, but he's not completely paralyzed on the left side. He has some movement, but there is stiffness there. So he has lived a successful life. He lives with his wife and his beautiful daughter. They do a lot of things. They go off-roading. So those are just huge accomplishments. What might seem like nothing for someone, let's say, who's able-bodied is huge for someone who had a massive injury, where it might not always be easy to live independently or go do things that an active adult would be able to do. So I've been talking a lot about Steven, and we're finally at Steven. He is just an athlete that I've been able to work with the longest, and he still comes to classes pretty consistently. I see him about 3 days a week in our CrossFit classes, but he actually used to coach Olympians, Paralympians, which is so cool in cycling, but he was a healthy US Navy officer. He was riding about 200 miles a week before he was through his injury. But then in October of 2026, so 20 years ago, 1 month before his fourth deployment to Iraq, he suffered a massive stroke to the brain and body, so leaving him unable to speak, use his arms, or walk independently. But within a year after his stroke, he was already riding a recumbent bike, which you can see in the image below. And then 3 years later in an upright trike, which is just amazing. Oh, sorry, recumbent sitting, and then the upright trike is here. So he's a medically retired lieutenant commander with an honorable discharge. He's just insanely impressive. Like, you could just see all of the awards that he's had. Like, he's just the quietest human being too. So when I was first making this presentation over a year ago, I didn't realize how many awards he had. I was like, oh my gosh, he just would never talk about this. But I just have so much respect for him. He is an athlete that will come in and I'll be like, let's do this today. What do you think? And he'll be like, let's do it. So it's super exciting to collaborate with someone that's just willing to get outside his comfort zone, and having that athlete mindset is something that is huge, especially when you're in a CrossFit gym. So it's been quite a treat to be able to work with an athlete like Steven. And then let's see. Aha. So this is the TRX we've used with Steven before. As you can see, his right side, he's similar to Hollis. Hollis's wasn't a stroke, but he's able to move his right side slightly, but obviously there is some stiffness there from his stroke. This is what we would do. So if there was some sort of like ring dip that we would have in a workout, we'll have him do dips from a box instead, but obviously he has to do single arm for that. So it's something to be cognizant of when working with an athlete like Steven, where he has to use just his one side, is the volume that he is doing. I'm not sure. I think I already shared this one. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back. And then here are some of the videos, other videos. So this is him doing wall balls. It's really hard. If you've ever done a wall ball before and then you do it with one arm, it's even harder. So he's just someone who's like, let's try it. Let's do it, which is amazing. Slam balls, another thing that he would have to do with a single arm. It's not easy. He's got to get the timing down so that he can catch the ball. So there's a lot of coordination that is definitely involved when doing this. This is the ropes that I was talking about earlier, doing the rope slams. So we can also do some sort of weighted pull. When we had, it was actually one of the open workouts and there was a lot of lunging. And so I had him do this pulling instead, because it wouldn't make sense for him to do that many lunges if he's unable to really bend his knee on that right side. And then he is insane in that he's doing one arm snatches, which again, snatches are really hard with both arms. So just imagine doing it with one and the balance that you have to have. So this is him doing snatches with a barbell. This would be something I wouldn't have him do in a workout, but he can do this if we have like a strength portion, because obviously see there's some loss of balance at times. Not something I would have him do if he was doing a lot of volume. And then one more athlete I will speak about today. This is Lilia. She is just the sweetest human. She also comes in the mornings pretty consistently, so I still am able to work with her, but she is a lower limb amputee. So you can see in this picture next to one of there's members like to bring their dogs, so they just have dogs coming in during classes. But unfortunately, she lost her limb to a hit and run when she was adult. And when I first started working with her, she let me know, she said, if I am just getting a lot of pain from the workout and I start crying, just let me work through it. And I was just, it was like one of my second days coaching at 1904. And I was like, okay. But I've just learned how to speak with her and coach her. And it's just been amazing to see how much she's evolved as an athlete. She actually works for CrossFit headquarters as well. So she's pretty integrated into the community, but she lives all the way out in Chula Vista, but loves 1904 so much just because of our adaptive program that she drives 30 miles to come to class at 6:45 in the morning, which is just amazing. But she's able to live independently. She has a wonderful husband. She's a world traveler. She's always traveling somewhere. I swear every month she's somewhere new. But her being able to do that when, it's something where having a prosthetic at times, it takes over a year for you to fit into a prosthetic. And so the idea of walking, if you're in another country where you think like when you're in Europe, you're walking all the time. And she's been able to be healthy enough and evolve enough that she could do a trip like that. And it's not something where she has to be in a wheelchair. So it's just huge milestones that she's been able to hit in her adulthood after this injury. And then here's some videos. So her doing some front squats. So she really is only able to reach parallel with her prosthetic, which is fine. And I sometimes I'll have her do box squats as well if it makes sense, just so that she can feel a little bit more balanced. This is her doing some rowing, so that wouldn't really change much. She's not going to have as much power output because of that one leg not being able to push off as much. So I might just scale the volume of how much she'd be rowing in a workout. These are single leg squats that she's doing. So she's using the rig just for some support. So a lot of the times I'll have her use the rig just to make sure that she's not relying too much on her one side. And then this is doing some burpees. Who doesn't love some burpees? So I guess these are burpee pull-ups. So she uses a box so she doesn't have to go all the way down. Let's see. Well, and then the last thing I'll say, because I brought up prosthetics and something to consider when you're working with, especially those with prosthetics, if it's hot out, if they haven't slept well, there's so many considerations where they might not fit in their prosthetic or it might not fit that well that day. And so that's why going back to rules of engagement are so, so important to check in with how they are feeling, how they are doing. Because some days Lilia, her prosthetic hurts. And so we're not going to do as much lower body stuff and we're not going to bend at the knee because it bothers her. So it's just really asking those good questions that go back to the rules of engagement that will help you thrive as an adaptive coach, if that's something that you ever want to do. Okay, now I'm done talking. Any questions?
Thank you so much for presenting. I always appreciate how much detail you go into with the personal client stories and then um, the exercise adaptations.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask is, based on your experience in working with adaptive athletes and adaptive clients, um, how important do you think it is for people with physical disabilities to not only just participate in adaptive CrossFit, but adaptive recreation in general?
Mm. I think as human beings, we all need that like sense of like purpose. And going back to Brett, who was someone that didn't have any hobbies once he was injured, it gave him something to strive for. And not just that, he was around other people that were had similar goals. And it's something where like you community is such a massive part of being involved in hobbies. And I think that's something that so many people, whether you have a disability or not, that we all need. Like I think that they call it like the third place in that like it's you have work, you have either work or school and then home, and you need that third place where you have community and that place where you can be goofy and be yourself, and you can grow and evolve and get through tough things and have support. And so I think for an adaptive athlete especially, getting involved in something where they don't feel alone, whereas a lot of times I think the world is really not built for adaptive athletes or just those with visible and invisible disabilities, and it's really frustrating. And so having a place where they can just kind of let all of that out, I think is just like it not only helps them physically but mentally, emotionally, just all aspects of their life basically.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Don't be shy. I can even, if there's questions, I went through the videos really fast. I just wanted to make sure I'd leave time for questions. But it is a lot of information. But if there's any questions even after the fact about any of the videos or the athletes, I'm happy to answer those as well.
I have another one.
Yeah.
How much of it is like how important is having adaptive equipment versus just being creative and finding new
Mm,
ways to adapt exercises for a client?
yeah, that's a really good question. I have never, because I've been so spoiled with having adaptive equipment, it feels like it's been safer. Like I showed you that one with the pull-up bar, and it was like this sketchy band around the barbell. And it's one of those things too when I know when the world doesn't feel like it's built for you, it feels really frustrating. So when you have equipment that's built for you, there's this feeling of like that you belong and that like you are being considered. And I don't think once I started working with more adaptive athletes, I realized how much of the world is not built for those, like, let's say in a wheelchair. Like, one of the athletes said he was going to go with his family to San Francisco. And he was talking about it. And then another athlete who's also a wheelchair athlete, he just said, like, oh, have you checked, like, where did you make an itinerary? Like, a lot of San Francisco is not really wheelchair friendly. Like, think about all the hills and just like getting around. It's not very wheelchair accessible. And so it's one of those things when the world is not built for you, it's insanely frustrating. So having equipment that is built for you so it doesn't feel like you have to makeshift it or you're going to maybe hurt yourself, it makes a huge difference. Like the movable bar that I showed you, it allows us to do so much. Steven, whenever we have pull-ups, I have him use that. And I know he's going to be safe with that because it's locked in versus getting the barbell out. I just don't think he's going to be as safe. And so it not only gives them a feeling of that they're being considered, but it's also a safety piece that I think is important to have adaptive equipment for.
I noticed in some of the videos that it looks like when Steven's doing like the clean and stuff like that, he has a weight in the other hand. Is that something
Yeah,
you said? Is it a weight?
it is. Yeah. So he has there's a company that has like different assistive, I'm not using the right words, but he has like a brace and it allows him to get some feedback in that hand because it would just be uh, gripped this like this. So it gives him the ability to work some of those muscles, but also keep some space. So it's not completely closed like this. Because he's not really able to, like I've had him try some things, but he's not able to fully extend. So giving him some ability to give some feedback and also make sure he's not ending up because it's one of those things, a body in motion stays in motion and a body at rest stays at rest. So if he was like this all the time, he would lose so much more range of motion. So I was trying to keep some of that range of motion in his hand as long as possible.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. Thank you so much, Annie, for stopping by
Yeah,
and speaking
I
with
actually,
us.
I actually have one more slide, and
Oh, okay.
am I still sharing?
Oh, I think you just stopped. There you go.
Okay. So, last slide, I promise. What you can do next. We have it sounds like you guys have a lot of volunteer opportunities, but I alluded to the strength clinic that we have. We'll have a third one in May on the 17th, so it's a Sunday. We have limited spots which is a fantastic problem to have, in that we had too many volunteers last time and it kind of got in the way of the athletes. But if you are interested and as more information is coming out, you can let me know. And I'm happy to give you the form to register to sign up. And then also just there's a bunch of volunteer opportunities through the Challenge Athletes Foundation. They're fantastic. But like I said, you guys sound like you have a lot of volunteering opportunities already, but I know October is a big month for CAF and they have like a triathlon that they do. So, and I volunteered for that before and it was a really fun time. And then I kept alluding to this advanced adaptive course. So this is a link to it. And then also we have a TikTok page that we're trying to build up. So you can just look up MovementRx adaptive trainer course and we'll pop up there for you. But it just breaks down some movements, some of the videos that you saw today, and just trying to expand the reach and have people learn about the advanced adaptive course. So again, I'll share this with William and you guys can have access to the videos and to these resources. And I am just an email away if you have any questions that weren't able to think through just today, because it was a lot of information. So I'm happy to answer any offline as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone has a lovely evening. And yeah, something that I think is worth calling out is I would never consider myself like an expert in like adaptive coaching. I think you will always be a student, and like even after you guys graduate, always having that like student mindset of learning is just vital, especially in coaching. You're always learning. There's always going to be new things and new challenges. So what you are as a student right now, don't take that mindset away, especially as you graduate. And if you are especially coaches, that is something that you will always be doing, is learning day by day. So that's my last thing. Thank you so much, William. Appreciate it. I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.